January 18th, 1944. Dawn had not yet broken over Shimbu Valley, but the jungle already seethed with heat and moisture. Thick curtains of mist drifted over the ground, swirling between jagged volcanic rocks, rotting tree stumps, and abandoned foxholes where last night's firefights had left the soil churned and darkened with blood. Hidden beneath a tangled mesh of banana leaves and wet vines, Staff Sergeant Eli Turner of the 32nd Infantry Division lay pressed chest first into the mud, motionless except for the slow, careful rise and fall of his breath. Every muscle in his body was taut, every nerve wired to the faint sounds that echoed through the humidity. Dripping water, chirping insects, distant rumbling of artillery far behind the ridgeline, and, most ominous of all, the occasional muffled crack of a sniper rifle somewhere on the opposing slope. For hours, Turner's platoon had been pinned down by Japanese marksmen, whose positions seemed invisible, almost supernatural. They fired from the shadows of caves carved into basalt cliffs, from hollowed tree trunks, from cunningly disguised slits in the undergrowth. Every time an American soldier tried to crawl forward, a single shot struck the dirt inches from their helmet, or worse, found its mark with surgical precision. Even seasoned veterans swore that these particular snipers could read movement like books and sense hesitation like animals tracking prey. The tension was suffocating. Soldiers lay with their faces in the muck, gripping their rifles with trembling fingers, each man terrified to become the next silhouette against the skyline. No one dared speak above a whisper. No one dared raise his head. A single exposed elbow earlier that morning had cost Private Callahan his life, a bullet punching cleanly through his shoulder blade before anyone even registered the sound. And there, half submerged under foliage, was Eli Turner, quiet, deliberate, calm in a way that unnerved even the bravest men. He didn't flinch when a bullet chewed leaves just inches above his face. He didn't curse or panic or pray aloud like others. He listened, he watched. His eyes, gray and unblinking, scanned the horizon through the narrow gap between two fronds, absorbing every flicker of movement, every shift of shadow. Turner's hands cradled a rifle no one else in the platoon respected. A civilian-tuned Springfield 1903 sporting model, polished walnut stock, a long unertl 6x scope that looked like something a backyard astronomer would use to study planets. Too slow, the men had said. Too delicate. The old relic will seize in the humidity. The scope will fog. The mount will shake loose. They'd called it impractical, outdated, laughable. One corporal joked that Turner was planning on hunting elk instead of fighting the Imperial Japanese Army. Turner had ignored all of it. He had bought that rifle with every spare dollar he could gather after winning shooting competitions back in Oregon. He had spent years tuning it, smoothing the bolt, adjusting the trigger pull, glass bedding the stock. The rifle was more than a tool to him. It was a living extension of discipline, patience, and identity. And despite every order, regulation, and scolding officer, he had smuggled it into the Pacific Theater because deep in his bones he knew that one day, in some terrible moment, he would need that familiar weight in his hands. That moment had arrived. The first American patrol that attempted to cross the narrow saddle between two ridges had been shredded by unseen rifle fire. 8 men died. 2 more had crawled back, bleeding heavily, unable even to describe where the shots came from. The terrain ahead, a steep slope plunging into thick jungle, flanked by caves and rocky outcroppings, had become a death funnel. Anyone advancing into it might as well be walking into the sights of an executioner. Yet the mission could not pause. Higher command demanded the valley be taken. A Japanese supply line threaded through it, one that had to be severed, or hundreds more Allied soldiers would suffer in the following weeks. But intimidation and fear had frozen the offensive. Every man in Turner's platoon silently hoped someone, anyone, could break the stalemate before total disaster struck. Beneath the leaves, Turner felt the familiar contours of his rifle. He slowly pushed the wooden butt deeper into his shoulder, careful not to disturb the camouflage over him. The jungle sweat on his palms mixed with old gun oil, producing a smell he found strangely comforting. He breathed in deeply and exhaled through his nose, clearing his mind in the same way he'd done during long-range matches years before. He rose an inch, then another, slowly, Agonizingly slowly, he crawled toward an abandoned Filipino bunker nestled between two tree stumps. The structure leaned to one side, its roof half collapsed and crawling with termites. It was far from ideal, but it held a crucial advantage. A narrow firing slit overlooked the valley at an angle no one else had thought to check. Turner slid inside, his body flattening against cool dirt. The darkness of the bunker enveloped him like a cloak. From this vantage point, he could observe patterns most soldiers would never see. He wiped a foggy patch from his scope lens with a piece of cloth and leaned into position. The valley beyond the slit was a tapestry of motion. Not chaotic motion, but subtle, rhythmic, natural. Leaves stirring in the wind, vines swaying under the weight of raindrops, birds flitting between branches. Turner's practiced eyes drifted from shadow to shadow, searching for anything that betrayed human intent. He was looking for the unnatural, a taut vine instead of a limp one, a broken branch where none should be broken, coloration that didn't perfectly match the jungle's palette. Then he saw it, a faint glimmer, not metallic, not liquid, something between the two, the reflective sheen of tree sap on a freshly cut branch. Turner's heartbeat slowed. In the wild, sap dries, it crusts over, but this sap shone wetly in the filtered morning light, a sign someone had cut that branch recently. His scope swept left, a tree fork, something blurred, a fabric texture that rippled too smoothly to be mere bark, and then a subtle shift, the tiniest lift of cloth as its wearer inhaled. Turner stopped breathing. He let his heart settle, let his eyes adjust, let the reticle drift naturally, gently dancing with the pulse inside his finger. He whispered to himself, as he had for nearly 20 years, steady hands, clear eyes, trust the shot. He squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked, echoing faintly among the cliffs. A split second later, the silhouette in the tree fork jerked violently and tumbled downward, snapping branches on the way down. Before Turner could savor the impact, another bullet slammed into the bunker's roof, spraying him with splinters. The second sniper had seen the muzzle flash. Turner slid his body sideways, minimizing his silhouette. The next enemy shot cut through the air where his head had been seconds earlier. He listened. 1, 2, 3 seconds between shots. The pattern suggested the sniper was not changing location. Turner searched for the telltale puff of displaced dust or the faint shimmer of heat where a rifle barrel met the humid air. There, a slight shadow shift near a hillside vent, carved between roots and rocks. Turner exhaled, fired again. Another crack, another body slumping. Word spread through the platoon like wildfire. The quiet marksman with the old relic of a rifle had eliminated 2 deadly snipers before most soldiers even understood where the shots originated. Turner didn't bask in the recognition, he barely registered it. His world had narrowed to a hunter's instinct. Find the threat, move silently, fire once, move again. And the threats kept coming. At 9:48 a.m., he spotted a figure lying among corpses. Something was off. The body's posture was too rigid, and the right arm was angled in a way no dead soldier's limb naturally fell. Turner observed for several seconds. That's when he saw it. The faintest tightening of fingers around a rifle stock. He shot instantly. The disguised sniper convulsed and went still. As the day progressed, the Japanese changed tactics. They began working in pairs, one firing to bait Turner while another positioned for the kill. They were cunning, disciplined, trained for this exact scenario. Turner recognized the danger immediately. He refused to fire at the first muzzle flash. Instead, he scanned for the second. That's where the true sniper would be waiting, prepared to strike when Turner revealed himself. He used rocks, fallen logs, and even the curve of the bunker wall to mask his angles. He would fire, roll, relocate, and reestablish a new line of sight without ever staying longer than 5 seconds in one position. One near miss rattled him. A bullet snapped a branch inches from his face. Splinters peppered his cheek. He tasted blood, but he steadied himself, swallowing the fear swelling inside. Fear clouded judgment. Fear cost lives. Fear made hands tremble, and trembling hands missed shots. By sunset of the first day, Turner had eliminated 6 snipers. But he was not done. That night, the jungle did not sleep. Insects buzzed relentlessly. Distant artillery thudded like a giant's heartbeat. The humidity wrapped around Turner like a suffocating blanket. He cleaned his rifle by feel alone, since lighting a lamp was impossible. Every motion was deliberate, practiced. He checked his scope mounts. He checked the bolt. He checked the bedding under the stock. Only when everything felt perfect did he allow himself to close his eyes for a few minutes of restless sleep. The second day brought new horrors. The remaining Japanese snipers were patient, too patient. Hours passed without a single shot. American soldiers felt hope, then foolishly lifted their heads. A single crack rang out. Another soldier died. Panic returned like a tidal wave. Turner crawled ahead, inch by inch, remaining below blade height of the undergrowth. His elbows sank into mud. Ants crawled into his sleeves and bit until blood speckled his skin. He ignored them. He moved forward like a ghost. He set up behind a fallen log, using it as a rest. The Japanese snipers had repositioned. They now fired from higher ground, where their vantage points offered long, slanted angles into the American lines. Turner had to counter elevation with subtle changes to his zero. He dialed his scope carefully, counting clicks by touch. Another crack from the ridge. He tried to spot the source. It took nearly 20 minutes before he found it. A thin, unnatural line of shadow against a rock face. He fired. The shadow shifted and then vanished. Turner's self-doubt threatened him periodically. Questions crept into his mind. Was he missing something? Were they luring him? Was he pushing too quickly? His body shook from dehydration and fatigue. But then a memory surfaced of his father teaching him to hunt deer in the Oregon woods. The animals that survive longest are the ones that wait, his father had said. Patience outlasts hunger. Patience beats fear. Patience wins. Turner breathed deeply. He calmed himself. He became patient. By the end of the second day, 11 enemy snipers were dead. The third day was the worst. Only 2 snipers remained, and these were not ordinary marksmen. They were veterans known for tactics bordering on the inhuman, crawling through mud silently, holding their breath for minutes at a time, firing from positions that seemed physically impossible. Before sunrise, Turner crawled into a water-filled foxhole. The swampy muck reached his chest, filled with insects and filth. Leeches clung to his skin. Mosquitoes landed on his face. He did not move. He stared through his scope, waiting. Hours passed. His muscles stiffened. His fingers pruned. His knees ached. Yet he held still. Then he saw it. Not the enemy, but a clue. A faint puff of moisture emerging from behind a cluster of bamboo. Not smoke. Breath. The sniper was using a bamboo tube to breathe while buried underground. Turner aimed at the tube, but something felt wrong. The angle was off. The position was poorly chosen for a clean shot on the American lines. It was too easy, too obvious. It was bait. He waited, and then, ever so slowly, the bamboo tube rotated. The real sniper was shifting. Turner fired, hitting the concealed marksman even though he couldn't see the body. The tube clattered against rocks. The last sniper fired almost instantly, his shot carving the air near Turner's shoulder. Turner rolled, mud sucking at his uniform. He slid behind a root cluster and scanned frantically. This sniper moved with uncanny speed, never firing twice from the same place. Turner had only 3 rounds left. He climbed, silently, painfully, onto a narrow rock ledge above the valley. Every inch forward could reveal him. He pressed his body into the stone, making himself a shadow. Then he saw it. A helmet, so well camouflaged it almost blended into the rock. It rose just an inch, no more. Turner didn't breathe. He aimed. He squeezed. The helmet collapsed. Silence swallowed the ridge. Turner trembled, his lungs gasping, his heart thudding like a drum. He lay still for nearly a full minute, letting the adrenaline ebb. Then he crawled back to his platoon, dragging his exhausted body over roots and rocks. When he arrived, the men stared at him with disbelief, admiration, and something bordering on reverence. His commanding officer approached him slowly, gaze fixed on Turner's mud-covered face and battered rifle. Where once there had been mockery, now there was respect. Turner's tally was 14 confirmed snipers, 19 rounds fired, not a single miss. His actions broke the stalemate. The valley was cleared. The offensive resumed. Word spread through the division that a quiet marksman with an outdated rifle had done what entire companies couldn't. He was reassigned to train a new reconnaissance sniper squad. His methods, patience, discipline, elevation correction, anti-bait tactics, were documented and circulated. His insights would quietly influence American sniper training for decades. Later, Turner joined the 5th Ranger Battalion, fighting through Luzon's mountains and jungles. He adapted his rifle again, shortening stock wraps, waterproofing the scope, adjusting zero for new climates. He learned to fight in flooded ravines, clinging to vines in monsoon rains. He learned to shoot across ridgelines and down into ravines where echoes distorted sound. He survived ambushes, artillery, night assaults, and disease. After the war, Turner returned to Oregon. He trained new recruits, wrote field notes, and eventually donated his rifle, scarred, weathered, revered, to the U.S. Army Infantry Museum. Visitors walked past it each year, unaware that in one 3-day stretch of desperation, that rifle saved the lives of an entire platoon. Turner lived quietly. He rarely spoke of Shimbu Valley. But the men he saved remembered. Their children remembered. Their grandchildren remembered. And every time someone whispered Turner's name, the valley echoed with the memory of a single man who turned the tide with patience, precision, and a rifle everyone mocked. War is shaped not only by generals and grand strategies, but by individuals like Eli Turner. Quiet, overlooked, underestimated. Men who carry a skill so fine-tuned it becomes a force more powerful than fear. Men who rise when their moment arrives, not for glory, but for survival, for duty, for the man next to them in the dirt. Remember the valley. Remember the silence before the shot. Remember the man with the old rifle who stood alone against 14 unseen enemies. And remember that history is carried forward by voices willing to tell these stories, so the courage of men like Turner never fades into dust. If you have a family member who served in the war, speak their name, share their stories. Their courage deserves remembrance. And as long as tales like Turner's are passed from one voice to another, they will never be forgotten.